My name's Ian Bogost. I am on faculty at Washington University in St. Louis in Arts and Sciences and Engineering. And I also have a game company. I write for The Atlantic. So I have a number of hats. So, as an engineer, I think about designing systems that build on generative AI. As an educator, I think about how we use or how we might want to use generative AI. As a writer, I think about what I could do with AI, but also how I could write about it, which I've done. So, I think like many people, like right now, I feel like there's some new world opening, and I don't understand it yet, and I want to understand it, not just in order to tell people about it, but to change the way that I work, hopefully for the better, and play too. So I think my relationship with generative AI is one of deep curiosity and some uncertainty, but not deep skepticism or fear. Yeah, I think one of the problems with asking what generative AI is that we kind of don't know what AI is to start from. Generative is easy. It just means it makes stuff. And it makes stuff kind of from scratch. It generates, So generative methods and computation, we've been using that word for a long time. That part's kind of straightforward. Using computer systems to generate or create from whole cloth. And the AI part is complicated, though, because the AI kind of doesn't mean anything. It usually means something like it's just a computer program. It's like a fancy name for a computer program. Or as one of my colleagues told me at one point, it's like making computers work like they seem to in the movies. Some people liken it to magic, and that's always dangerous to do. It's certainly not about intelligence, I don't think, even though AI stands for artificial intelligence, and it's not artificial in the sense that it was created. I mean, it's not organic, certainly. Yeah, I mean, one of the big differences with generative AI is that we don't know how it works. We don't sort of have a sense of why it does what it does, or it's very hard to determine. That's increasingly the case with complex computing systems, but in this case, because AI models train themselves, it's often difficult to know why they make the decisions that they do and why you get the outputs that you see from them. Another thing is that generative AI methods can be used in a lot of different domains. That's not really new. Computation is general computing, we call it. It's applicable to a whole range of disciplines and professional contexts. But generative AI feels new to some people because it appears to be able to do knowledge work or to do creative work, or at least to appear to do that kind of work. And that feels different. That's different than using a machine to automate number crunching. Now it can generate poems or write emails for you. So those are some of the differences. Another reason it's different maybe is that comes at a moment in time when we've been talking for decades now about kind of nextness, about what the next big thing is going to be, but we've really been building incrementally on the same technologies. We had, since personal computers appeared in the 1970s, and then they got cheaper and smaller, and then we got the internet, got a global communication network in the 80s and 90s, and then we put that all together with smartphones. That's been very, very much evolutionary, and it's changed the way we live, but it's basically been the same kinds of changes, especially since the mid-90s when the internet arrived en masse. And generative AI might be like a break, like something feels truly new or different. I feel the way about it now that I remember feeling about the web and the internet in the mid-90s, which is 30 years ago now. Yeah, generative AI is it's confusing. There's a kind of priesthood of technologies and technological designers that have constructed, almost like private languages around how to talk about and develop. We have, machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, transformers, all these kind of terms that have special meanings in computer science, but also are really difficult to grasp as ordinary people. Whereas, you're going to access your bank or your school district's calendar or your a frequent flyer account on the internet. That's pretty easy to understand. And then, I think one of the reasons ChatGPT was such a big innovation was that it was easy to use, and AI hasn't traditionally been easy to use, easy to get into and figure out how it might affect you. But that also makes it kind of weirdly hard to know what to do with it. Like, what is this thing? I can ask it anything and it'll give me some response, and that response might be nonsense or it might be wrong, but that's a little bit unnerving, and it's not quite clear how am I to incorporate this into my life. So we haven't kind of figured out exactly how it weaves into our cultural norms and our work and our personal lives. That's a little bit different. When you first got a personal computer, in the 70s or 80s, it also wasn't super useful, but there were some things you could, I can, keep my books or write a document without having to retype it every time. And the smartphone too, it's obvious why that was useful. It's like I have the whole internet and everything I could do on my computer in my pocket or purse. It's kind of obvious. Generative AI is feels like it should be obvious, but it's not what it's for. And it's kind of a name for a family of technologies that, the most common of which generate images or text, but it can do a lot more than that too. It's mostly going to be used as an intermediary between other systems and not necessarily as a consumer-facing experience. So it's like a little bit alien, not just because it feels like it might be intelligent or that it's talking to you as if it were real or alive, but also just because it feels different than previous computing experiences. Yeah, I mean, it's possible that generative AI will not be the next big thing or a next big thing, but I think it's likely that it will be in some form. And for that reason, it would behoove anyone who's plans to be alive over the coming decades to know something about it. Because obviously we've seen the way that previous technologies, as they become global in scale, have massively changed the way that we work and live, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. And we weren't necessarily prepared for them, and they were easier to understand, as I mentioned. So if you'd like to, live and thrive in the next quarter of the 21st century, then it makes sense to understand something about what's coming. And even if you don't believe that it's coming, it's a reasonable hedge, I think, to learn what this future might look like and might bring. And when I talk to folks in almost every profession, they're all thinking about this. They're either using generative AI systems already, or they're pondering what it means for them. And that means if you work, or if you have kids who might work or go to school or live in the world, that it's good to be somewhat aware of what's on the horizon, and then hopefully, based on that knowledge, to help steer the ship. And especially given there's many concerns that are reasonable, about any kind of technological change. And in this case, it feels like we're at risk of amplifying some of the worst features of internet life in a kind of automated way, and to be able to produce all kinds of information or disinformation at a moment's notice, fake images, all of that. That's not new exactly, but the kind of depth of concern, I think, it's a good sign that you need to lean in even further. So there are those who are completely unconcerned about the social implications of AI, and they're all in. And so that's all the more reason for those with skepticism to also be all in, even if only in a defensive way. I mean, the big thing that surprised me about generative AI in my own use was just how useful it was as a kind of creative aid, as an imagination exercise, as a tool to exercise my imagination. It made me worried that I hadn't been doing that effectively previously, and the kind of iteration, the speed at which you can work up some new idea or some new concept, and I felt like I could sort of visualize every notion in my head instantly, and then dispose of some or work on others or just reflect on them. So I think that kind of speed of creative experimentation, I don't exactly know what it leads to, but it strikes me as capable of producing much more rapid change in any domain. I don't exactly know what consequences that rapid change might have, but I suspect we'll see just a kind of large-scale acceleration of progress, good or bad. And that's one of the things I think about the most when I think about the future of generative AI. I think it's really hard to learn about generative AI because it's confusing and there's like it's very badly explained in publicly accessible kind of general readership publications, and so like understanding it at an intellectual level can be tricky. I think the easiest thing someone can do who's interested in learning more is just to try these systems out. Most of them are available for free or for relatively modest fees, as a way of kind of like testing out what the future might look like, and especially trying out things that are familiar to you, like what's important to your job or your creative life, or what's something you're worried about a computer being able to do as well or better than you, or at least seemingly so. That's the easiest inroad. And then from there, I think it gets much harder. Because once you play around with these things, you get a sense of what they're capable of now, but how to put them to use. And, that's not the kind of thing that's necessarily in the hands of the every person. They may not be able to make their own, software that interfaces with it, or to incorporate it into their day-to-day lives. But that would be the next step, Try something out as a regular practice, see what it's like, find the edges, talk to other people about it. I think those are, pretty easy first steps. But yeah, unfortunately, I feel like you remember those like dummies books that got really popular back in the days? Like, there's probably one. There's like Generative AI for Dummies, but they never really explained anything in very effectively for dummies or for ordinary people. And there's not a great resource to kind of learn about the history or operation of the technologies underlying generative AI. So instead, it's kind of an experience from use. I think that's the best way to get to the heart of it.